Bye week over, but the Bruins open up the Indiana week as 3-point underdogs at home. That's just despicable.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxheimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Where we get started today is the UCLA Bruins. They had an early bye week in week 2. And then you wonder how UCLA was going to show up to the bye week practices. How were they going to improve? Because there were some glaring things the Bruins needed to fix heading into this Indiana game. And so much so, and Indiana has impressed so much in the first 2 weeks under Curt Cignetti and Curtis Rourke, that the Hoosiers are actually 3-point favorites according to FanDuel, that they're coming into the Rose Bowl. They are, in any other probable time in history, there's not many times you're going to favor Indiana over UCLA over their collective histories in the Rose Bowl, right? There's just not many times. And it's interesting now that that's the case. Now, we saw the glaring things the Bruins needed to fix, right? Large part of it involved the fact that UCLA needed to fix the O-line. They need to get a run game. Well, Indiana's been running the ball like they did against Western Illinois. They had 7 yards of carry. Now, Western Illinois was an FCS team last year that in 23 went 0-11. 0-11. And so far, they've been utterly destroyed the first 2 games. From Northern Illinois, who already beat Notre Dame, and by Indiana. Indiana beat Florida International twice, 31-7. So the comparison of the run games was that Indiana just destroyed a team that was so inferior to the Hoosiers that maybe it's a hard eye test to look at how good they are compared to what UCLA faced versus Hawaii. Now, Indiana has also only allowed 10 points in their first 2 games. UCLA struggled to muster 16 points, but the halftime fixes, UCLA went on 4 scoring drives and scored all their 16 points against the Bows a couple weeks ago after the half in Hawaii. Now, where is the comparison, right? Does Indiana look more like a fine-tuned team? Curtis Rourke, their starting quarterback, went like 15-17, a couple of touchdown passes before getting yanked. And all the Hoosiers did was the old equivalent of high school football. You're up 50, you're up 60. We're just going to turn a hand off the ball. Now, they did have 2 quarterbacks throw passes, but Rourke's the starter. The grad transfer using his COVID year and 6th year of college football for Curt Cignetti, the first-year head coach for the Hoosiers, who once was quoted as saying, "We're just going to go to another old-ass stadium and kick somebody's butt." Right? That's basically what he said. Not specifically a shot towards the Bruins, but that's the goal every week in his thought going to the Big Ten. So he has the moxie. He brings the swagger, right? When it comes to the battle of the coaches, you got the quotables that leads Indiana. You got the quarterbacks, both older guys, both have played from the 2019-2020 season. But the difference is Rourke was a MAC Offensive Player of the Year. If you look at the CFL rankings, right, because this kid's from Canada, he's a CFL candidate. He's the number 1 overall projected pick for the CFL with his older brother playing for the BC Lions in Curtis Rourke. Put up big numbers, not as much in 23, using the COVID year in his 6th year of college football because he redshirted in 19, had the COVID redshirt in 2020. So he's been around for a long time, formerly a Bobcat, now a Hoosier. This guy's been around college football, seen some of the best, and he can sling it around the field. Now, UCLA defensively, if they're up to the challenge, I think should be rearing to go. And if Indiana is going to try and be as physical as they were against Western Illinois, although some of that just is Indiana dominated so much they turned around and handed the football off, the Bruins looked solid enough defensively that I'm confident what they can do against Indiana when we're going to find out a significant increase of physicality going into the Big Ten opener, the inaugural Big Ten game for the Bruins, where they're sitting there as home dogs to Indiana. Now, is it the swagger of Cignetti that's going to get everybody? Or is it all the fears that UCLA's lackluster first half, pretty ugly overall finish against Hawaii that scared us all, from committing this to be UCLA dub, right? So on one hand, UCLA scared us all from truly being a favorite. UCLA should, in this season, should be a favorite against Indiana at home. They should be a favorite against Minnesota at home. And then, yes, should be favored against Fresno State at home and all those other things, right? Those are things that should happen. You bank those. Those can be the 4 wins, pushing you near that over-under win total of 4.5, 5.5, whatever number you got. Asking UCLA to win a road game somewhere, potentially, and maybe knock off a home team as the dog. And we'll get to the rest of the Big Ten and why this Big Ten conference is so funky, because they've all underperformed so far this year, UCLA included. But home dogs to Indiana should be a slap to Deshaun Foster's team in the face, right? This is disgraceful. Now, we'll find out if Indiana is the real deal. They're expecting to win this game. I think they have a favorable matchup in week 4, and they could be off and racing to 4-0 with only one true big win on the road, and that would be at UCLA, with the Bruins unproven and so far the Hoosiers unproven, despite 2 blowout victories, 31-7 against Florida International. Jury's still out in them. And then you have what is a dominant win over a team that was winless in the FCS in 2023, right? Even worse record than the team Hawaii beat in their week 0 opener, Delaware State, who only had 1 win. So what the Bruins have to do is kind of listen to some of this. They have to read, look, and be like, we're underdogs at home to Indiana. That is just great. This isn't basketball. This is football. And I think the Bruins should take that as a slap in the face and realize, hey, this is the home opener. This is a chance to signal to the fan base that even if this is supposed to be a down year in 24, even if the Bruins are not ready, if Chip Kelly let the well run dry from his lack of recruiting for a long time, there's only 10 high school offers out, commits, in this class of 24. So when the talent left, like the DTRs, like all those guys from the portal, the guys who are staying here for the COVID years, that vaunted offensive line that protected DTR in 21 and 22 and Charbonnet and Jake Bobo, Chip Kelly didn't recruit this year, which meant Deshaun Foster's left to pick up the pieces. They're trying to figure things out offensively with a completely new, complicated system. And do they have the pass protection to boot? And can they figure out things offensively to run the football against a potential very physical Indiana front? Well, UCLA they need to win this game. Even if it's a down year, even if it's not a bowl-winning season, this is a game the Bruins need and should win at home. Now, after watching week 1, that is debatable. It's a toss-up. And until the Bruins prove us otherwise, we're going to have to find the first 15, 30 minutes of this game and realize, is this team one of the worst teams of all time in UCLA history? And we have to look at Chip and all the fingers we pointed at first-year head coach Deshaun Foster. Is this a 4-win team, 5-win team that should bank on this one being close and another field goal finish when the final seconds tick off? Or is this a team that can win this game by 2 scores and prove, hey, this will be a fun game. UCLA won this game going away, especially with this being a home game. If this is at Indiana, I'd expect Indiana to be favored. But if it's in Pasadena, I would hope UCLA could be favored. But now they got to prove them all wrong and say week 1, mixed in with some buys, hopefully getting the starting tackles back in Unige and Garrett DiGiorgio. And I saw when Deshaun Foster talked to the media, we'll find out at the end of the week. That would go a long way into affecting how good the pass blocking is in this game. Significant hopeful improvement in the run blocking, and just a better mixture of calling and play design, whether you simplify the offense if you're Bieniemy, or a full week of bye-week practices after seeing what they look like on tape can fix things where they're not going to be averaging 50 points per game like Indiana is basically doing right now. All right, after they set school records basically with 77 points. But what they need to do is simplify, get back to basics, and then we'll find out whether this team is a horrible team. Because if they lose this game, UCLA is not going to be favored for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. They lose this game, they may not be favored until mid-October. They're not even favored, actually. So they're not going to be favored in the next month and a half. And if they lose this game, they're not going to, in a convincing fashion, they will be underdogs for maybe the rest of the season. Potentially. But maybe I'm going to sway you otherwise, because the Big Ten has struggled overall, maybe outside of Indiana dominating inferior opponents. the Big Ten had some ugly performances on Saturday, right? Namely, you look at Michigan and Texas, but Texas is a clear CFP team. What do the rest of the Big Ten do that still has me optimistic for this season for UCLA, right? Even though they're dogs at home to Indiana, I still look at the rest of the conference and I'm like, are you serious? Are you serious right now with these first 2-week performances? Why are we all suffering a similar fate? Underwhelming versus opponents they should dominate. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. Well, 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast. All right, you're sitting there tired after a long weekend. Heck, you spent the whole weekend probably watching football. Friday night, if you're into Friday Night Lights, you're sitting there Saturday college football. Sunday was the first full slate in the professional ranks. But you're tired. You have a long list to work. You're trying to watch some Monday night games, got DIY projects. No, 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast, zero sugar, convenient, portable to use. So if you're outside hanging with your buddies, you're going to a friend's house to go watch a game or something, or got a project to get done. It's perfect pick-me-up with flavors like watermelon, tropical, burst, grape. Flavors for everyone, try them all. You can have it delivered to your door, choose the flavors, and it can be a 12 or 24 pack. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com and get 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That is LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. That offer is only valid until September 30th. One order not used with promotions, any other promotions, and is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, so it's going to be somewhat of a regular segment after, the weekend. What did the rest of the Big Ten look like, right? What did they look like? And with UCLA not playing, it was more of what did everybody else look like in comparison to UCLA Bruins, who had an early week 2 bye, which just made us frustrated, anxious, right? We have to wait 2 weeks after that Hawaii game. That is probably the most frustrating thing we had to do. Sit and wait, practice, yada, yada, yada. We will know a lot about this team when they face Indiana about how good or bad the season could go. They beat Indiana, they're possibly on trajectory to be a bowl-winning team, a bowl season team, a team that makes it to a bowl game. They might go bowling. If they lose, all right, but the rest of this conference still looks weird, right? A lot of unique, weird performances in the Big Ten in this weekend. All right, you had Ohio State. They dominated Western Michigan. Ohio State, they haven't really played anybody. They won 56-0. Get out of here with that. Friday night finish, you had Duke, who beat Northwestern in Northwestern. So Northwestern, who barely beat a team by a touchdown the week before, finished their game 13-13 against Duke through 4 quarters. So offense, not a real big thing so far this year for the Wildcats, and lost at home in overtime to the Duke Blue Devils in double OT 26-20 at home. So they've had 2 one-score finishes. Could be 2-0, but I'm not going to say, Mike Elko's elsewhere right now. This is not the same Duke team. Northwestern, jury's out on them, but that's not an impressive home performance. They could have won that game. Texas, Michigan, watch that game. Michigan didn't belong on the same field. I'm not sure many teams could actually belong on the same field this year with Texas. Michigan doesn't have an offense to really battle with Quinn Ewers right now. All right, even though it's at Michigan, that just shows you how good Texas is. And Michigan doesn't have Jim Harbaugh or a quarterback right now. They just don't. The other crazy games, which I thought had unique finishes in this one, were Oregon, Boise State, where Oregon was basically on the ropes again. Idaho went and beat Wyoming. So the team Oregon struggled with the week before went on the road and beat Wyoming in a battle of an FCS game versus FBS team. So Idaho almost gave a legitimate cry for Oregon fans. They're better than they think. And then Oregon at home in Autzen barely could beat Boise State, who gave up like 50-plus points to Georgia Southern. And then UCLA hosts Oregon. And while Dylan Gabriel is completing like 95% of his passes, it seems like, under Dan Lanning, they have been inconsistent. We're trailing at the half, trailing in the fourth quarter, and it took a kickoff return touchdown in the fourth to tie the game. And if they don't get that big dynamic play to then tie the game and eventually win the game on a last-second field goal, they were lucky to escape the last 2 weeks in games in which they were favored at home at Autzen, which is daunting, although Oregon had not won all time against Boise. So that was the little curse they were trying to break. They gave up nearly 200 yards rushing to Boise State's top back. And UCLA just played Boise and beat them in the LA Bowl. And I'm not sure UCLA is the top 10 team in the country. They were last year. They weren't, but they're not the top 10 team in the country. They were in that bowl game, right? They're not a top 10 team. Oregon's supposed to be a top 3, top 10, clear Big Ten contender. And they're barely beating Boise State at home, who has made some apparent significant changes, and they're supposed to compete for that CFP group of 5 playoff spot. But man, Oregon has struggled. Penn State, this vaunted Penn State battle at Beaver Stadium the Bruins are going to have in early October. They struggled at home against Bowling Green and were trailing heading into the second half, right? They were down 24-20. So not only is Penn State supposed to be good defensively, Drew Aller is supposed to be doing great things. They gave up 24 first half points to Bowling Green. And yes, they fixed things at the break. You can have early struggles, but they only gave up 3 points in the second half. Penn State struggled at home against Bowling Green. I'm just like, what is going on right now? Looking at the Big Ten, I'm like, are you serious? Like, all right. And then wait, one more thing. Iowa then lost at home to Iowa State and scored 6 points after the break, no points in the fourth quarter, looking like an Iowa offense. Okay. So Iowa State beat Iowa at Iowa. And the Bruins host Iowa. And even if the Bruins are bad, if Iowa's not going to be able to score, the more I look at it, there's still a lot more winnable games on the schedule. Yes, Illinois did beat a top 20 Kansas team. And they scored 10 at home in Champaign to knock off the Jayhawks in a big upset. But the Bruins don't play Illinois, who's 2-0, both games being at home. Minnesota righted the ship a little bit by winning and beating Rhode Island by 48, but that's an FCS team. Maryland, I thought, shockingly lost to Michigan State at home. You had Nebraska, who dominated Colorado, but we all saw Colorado that we knew they were fraudulent after last year, those 3 weeks. So as much as Nebraska dominated Colorado, I still think the Bruins later in the season, maybe there's a freshman performance left in Dylan Raiola. Who knows? I'm dreaming now. And then Wisconsin had to scrap and claw to beat South Dakota, the Coyotes. So I look at the rest of this Big Ten. And yes, with the dominant performance from Rutgers and Washington over Eastern Michigan, some of these games look unique, right? From Minnesota's Week 1 game to where they lost to UNC on the Thursday night, I think is unique. Oregon struggling at home. The Bruins host Oregon. Okay. Yeah, Penn State struggling at home against Bowling Green. Yes, everybody's given and bound to have a bad week per week. And remember UCLA a few years ago when they reached the top 10, they struggled at home in the season opener against Bowling Green before pulling away in the least attended Rose Bowl game of all time, non-COVID reasons, with 115-degree heat in early August, early September. But then I look, I keep looking, I'm like, Oregon struggled, Penn State struggled, Minnesota struggled in Week 1 for Minnesota. Iowa looked like an Iowa and didn't have offense. And while Iowa State could be good, at home, I'd expect Iowa to win that game and not choke it to the Cyclones. I'm like, okay, Maryland losing to Michigan State. Interesting. I look at the majority of this schedule and I'm like, there's 3 teams, a lot of it, 2 of which in the vaunted deadly 3-week stretch where UCLA is not supposed to be competitive whatsoever against Oregon, Penn State in the upcoming LSU trip. Well, we're going to keep LSU out of this at the moment. Those Big Ten games, they look a lot more promising. And while the stadium might be invaded, which we'll talk about by Minnesota, Iowa, and, Indiana a little bit, it looks more competitive. So all the emphasis is on UCLA to play well this weekend, restore a little more faith in Deshaun Foster and the Eric Bieniemy offense. Hopefully, offensive line plays a little bit better, and Hawaii just had a good game plan. And maybe Hawaii's really good this year. Really good. That's the hope. And then UCLA got a quality road dub, which is always important in college football. And for the Bruins to go bowling, they need to hold serve against teams they should be favored against at home. All right? So the rest of the Big Ten did not impress. They did not. That's the battle, right? Or the Pac-12 schools, the former Pac-12 schools, right, who are combined 21-2 if you include the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, independent schools, they're 21-2 against the rest of the country. And is the bottom of the Big Ten as worthy of battling these teams? We'll find out for UCLA. It's time to show up. But who's going to show up? Lots of fans. Lots and lots of road fans. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. It's getting to the end, although it's still pretty hot summer-wise here into mid-September. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids, what do those all have in common, right? Well, you're probably buying a ton for the end of summer or last-second beach trips or whatever, and you shouldn't need to stress about the cost of all those things. Use Ibotta, and you can get cash back on all your purchases where you stock up on all your essentials, whether it's for the heat, whether it's for football season, all that. All you got to do is check out Ibotta. It's a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries, beauty supplies, toys. You can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user actually saves $256 per year. That's an entire shopping trip, the flight you're trying to get maybe for UCLA across the country to see some of these games, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Whatever it is, join the 50 million users when you use Ibotta who earn cash back every time they shop. All you got to do is check out the $5 they're offering all our listeners for trying Ibotta using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Again, go download the app. It's free. Ibotta is free in the App Store, Google Play Store. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA, Ibotta, in the App Store, Google Play Store. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, last segment here for Locked On UCLA. Today we're talking about, what is the attendance going to look like for UCLA in their home opener? Is it going to look good? Is it going to look ugly? Or we're going to hear the memes and the jokes? I don't know, but UCLA will be significantly helped out because they're in the Big Ten. It's not all these Pac-12 teams that don't want to travel down from wherever, right? Although, you saw the UCLA game get pretty much sold out against Colorado. We saw the vibe and the buzz when, there's big games in the Rose Bowl. It will fill up. And it's at a decent time. It shouldn't be overwhelmingly unbearable. Like if it would have been played this week, UCLA, Indiana, probably would have been a lot less UCLA fans sitting there in 100-degree heat, which is why we're lucky that, of course, as much as I hate the week 2 bye, there still is going to be much cooler weather closing in on mid-September in week 3, which is not always an easy say for when you're tailgating at the Rose Bowl for those early season games. Now, I was reading a great read from Ben Bolch, who did a lot of research, a lot of digging, talking to other athletic departments. Ben Bolch on the UCLA beat about on the LA Times, about how many teams are going to bring a super influx to UCLA. Well, that was already expected, right? That was already expected that teams were going to get here. Minnesota hasn't been to the Rose Bowl in forever. Indiana, that's not happened in forever. Then you have Iowa. It's been since UCLA's last Rose Bowl victory, since they've been in, a big Rose Bowl game. Of course, they played against Stanford about 8 years ago. So there's a lot of teams, traditional Big Ten teams, they're going to get their first taste of the Rose Bowl. And some of them might come with the attitude like Curt Cignetti, yeah, we're the name Indiana, but we're going to go to some old stadium and kick somebody's butt, and that's the goal every week. Well, that's good for Curt Cignetti and the Hoosiers, but for the faithful of Indiana, they have not been to Pasadena in a long time, which is the iconic stadium. And for Indiana and UCLA, that'll be a 4:30 game. Get that iconic sunset and just amazing backdrop, right? Because of the time, still with the sunset being later, you'll get an almost New Year's Day-like sunset with the game still being at 4:30 and nationally televised. For what, reading in this LA Times article that was well done, posted on the same day this podcast will be posted by Ben Bolch, what we're posting on our podcast. He talked about how, some of these teams, they're expecting their biggest road traveling contingent to be the Rose Bowl. Well, yes, they're not always going to want to go to Rutgers in Maryland every year, or I'm not sure how many people want to go to the Big House or Ohio State. The novelty, yes, they want to go beat USC across town, but the stadium is the Rose Bowl. That's what they're going to see. Get to LA, go to UCLA. Indiana, the most tickets they've sold apparently, going to the trip for the Rose Bowl. Same thing for Iowa, who has sold their allotment for over 2,700 tickets, and we're expecting a big Hawkeye turnout considering the UCLA game against Iowa is early November. It's going to be frigid in Iowa City. I think they're going to want to come out for a Friday night 6 p.m. kick and enjoy some warmer weather, even if it's cooler in Los Angeles in the San Gabriel Valley in Pasadena. They're going to do that. Minnesota, rumor has it, I think was posted by Ben Bullish, 10,000. All right. So if UCLA doesn't come to play, there'll be a large contingent of people making sure it's known. Who remembers that UCLA-Nebraska game from a decade plus ago? That was a loud contingent of Nebraska fans. All right. And while Nebraska's a little different, they're still all going to show up. Minnesota. I'm not sure Indiana's going to bring 10,000, but they will sell out their allotment of tickets. And this is going to happen for the next 2, 3, 4 years when all these teams are cycling to the Rose Bowl. Now, I'm not sure how many people are coming from Rutgers or Maryland as non-traditional Big Ten teams, but still, they're going to want to come to UCLA and check it out, right? When Sparty comes, Michigan comes, Ohio State comes, they're going to come in droves and try and embarrass the Bruins with the turnout, which we do not have to worry about this year or next. But when the schedules get released and based on how the cross-scheduling platform is going to work, each team is going to host one or the other, or sometimes go home and home within the 4 years, right? I think the idea is you play one, you're going to play a team. UCLA in the next 4 or 5 years is going to see this happen again and again, where the biggest turnout, unless they're playing in the Rose Bowl and the CFP, whoever it is in the Big Ten, they will be coming to check out the stadium, UCLA, because there's still going to be, UCLA will be in year 3 that have not hosted half the teams in the Big Ten yet, right? They don't even have hosted all those because they still got Oregon, Washington, and USC on this year's schedule. And they still have Washington at home next year. I don't think they got Oregon on the schedule next year. They're not going to Eugene. Okay, so the Bruins, it's going to be a big rotation every other year, and maybe they change things. Maybe they want to get big money, big eyeball matchups that generate a lot of revenue, get those big college game day, big noon kickoff games. But there will be an invasion in the Rose Bowl of opposing fans, which I think what the UCLA athletic department is expecting, according to this LA Times article by Ben Bulge, 10 to 15% increase in what I believe is ticket revenue. 10 to 15% increase in ticket revenue. Maybe it's attendance, maybe it's tickets. Maybe we can get rid of the darn tarps. Get rid of those tarps. I don't want to sell out with tarps, right? UCLA would have sold out that UCLA SC game with the tarps off a couple of years ago, right? That wouldn't have needed tarps in 22. Now the Bruins, Indiana's going to bring people, right? They're going to bring people. Minnesota, that will be, I think, a very loud, noisy contingent of Golden Gopher fans in mid-October. And I think the loudest and the craziest, most rambunctious of the bunch will be Iowa when they come to town in early November. All right, that will be a unique time, and it'll be a lot more buzz. I believe the tailgating will be so much more fun. Not that it isn't at the Rose Bowl. I think it's one of the better tailgating environments in all of college football, just grass as opposed to the nasty Coliseum and everything. But we'll see. I'm excited. So that's why you should go get your tickets and go to the Rose Bowl. Cheer on Deshaun Foster in his home opener. And we're not going to make it as disastrous as that Chip Kelly opener. No. Go get close to 80,000 in there. Tired of seeing pictures and memes. Nobody's there. Well, we're out of COVID. It's not going to be hot. Indiana's bringing some people. You should go too. Those are cheap tickets. Go, Bruins fans. Let's get excited. And just as we're getting excited, get your hands up for an 8 clap. We're going to talk more UCLA football, keys offensively, keys defensively, UCLA basketball, recruiting, everything on this Locked On UCLA podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.